What's up guys, and welcome to my very first air-cooled Porsche 911 experience. I can't believe it's taken me this long since I started the YouTube channel. About a year and a half ago, I did drive a Porsche 912, and while that car visually was very much like a 911, the performance envelope with that little 4-cylinder engine didn't really do a whole lot for me. I suspect all of that is about to change because we are now in YC's 1974 Porsche 911 that he has extensively modified. I'll put the full list of mods in the video description, but some of the main items of note: the original 2.7 liter flat 6 engine that barely made 170 horsepower was swapped out in favor of a 3.6 liter flat 6 from the Porsche 964 generation. Now that's the late 80s, early 90s model of the 911. Still air-cooled, but this motor produces about 300 horsepower, almost double what the original 2.7 liter made. This car also has Öhlins dampers with remote reservoirs, spherical bushings all around, and the exterior is a tribute to the 50th anniversary 991.1 911 with the rear badges as well as this geyser gray paint job. But where I'm most impressed with the way YC has modified this car is the interior. This is an absolutely exquisitely, tastefully, beautifully modified interior for this 1974 911. Amazing leather with stitching that runs all the way across, beautiful period correct 3-spoke Momo Prototipo steering wheel, proper gauges, even this swath of leather across the dash with a 911 50th badge. It really does show YC's attention to detail. This thing is so perfect. As for seats, we actually have 997 generation bucket seats that have been modified with the houndstooth and the leather to look more period correct. But that's enough talk. Let's take this 911 for a drive. The question I want to answer for myself: is an original air-cooled 911 such as this one really a great car to drive when you push it hard on a canyon road? Or is it a situation where it's more about the simple fact that you're driving an almost 50-year-old car with all the eccentricities that come along with that? Now, first things first, the sensory overload from driving this car even slowly. The sound of that flat 6 engine right behind me, it rumbles, it growls. I can smell gas just permeating through the cabin. The steering is heavy, but it has so much feedback, unassisted of course, as are the brakes, completely unassisted, and you have to push that pedal real damn hard to get this car to slow down. The clutch pedal is also very heavy. The pedals are all floor mounted, which takes some getting used to because of the curvature of the axis when you push it down. This car definitely has a learning curve. It makes my 91 NSX honestly feel like the future. Wow. Just listen to all the sounds this car is making. 5-speed manual transmission with synchros, but it doesn't like to be speed shifted at all. You have to be very slow and deliberate when changing gears. Weighing in at 2,400 pounds with 300 horsepower. This car has proper straight line performance. It's not easy to heel toe with this super heavy unassisted brake pedal, the heavy shifter, these floor mounted pedals. Wow. This thing also has a lightweight flywheel, so the revs just shoot up and down so quickly. Which makes it actually kind of tricky to drive, because when I'm heel towing, when I'm downshifting, the revs want to drop so quickly, but the transmission and the brakes don't want to be hurried. So I find myself taking my time, but then not getting the proper rev match as a result. I'm sure there are ways around that, but first 5 minutes behind the wheel, this thing is not easy to drive. Let's see what this thing really feels like on the straights. It'll rev out happily to around 6,500 RPM. I did feel the rev limiter kick in, and it pulls so linearly, so progressively throughout the rev range. There's actually a great amount of mid-range torque for an old engine, even around 3,000 RPM. I get plenty of grunt. But second gear is more fitting for this road. We're on some Michelin PS4S tires on 17-inch wheels. So this car is tackling this damp road with no issues whatsoever. A modern tire compound on a nearly 50-year-old car. Pretty amazing. So much feedback through this wheel that it makes my NSX steering rack feel a little bit, just a little bit numb, in my opinion. Quite a slow steering ratio, as you'd expect for an old car. Oh, there it is. That 911 weight distribution rearing its, I won't even call it an ugly head. It's just, it is what it is. If you've ever driven a 911 hard, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. And this nearly 50-year-old example is the epitome of that. Going into corners, if you don't keep the weight on the nose of the car and you turn in too hard, the car will understeer. And when you get back on the gas, the car actually kind of wants to straighten out because you're shifting that weight back to the rear axle, and the front just gets even lighter. It's a very unique aspect of the 911. When you're driving around slowly, you'd never notice. It doesn't even matter the fact that the engine's in the back. But when you get up to 7/10, 8/10, you really have to know what you're doing to push one of these cars hard. These Öhlins dampers are doing such a great job. I can feel the fact that this car has spherical bushings. I mean, it is harsh, it is unforgiving. You feel every little nook and cranny on the road, every pebble. But the way these dampers handle those impacts, that's what makes the suspension so excellent. I've long been a fan of Öhlins as a more street-focused suspension, I guess you could say. That's why I went with Öhlins DFV from Sakebab for my NSX. And these Öhlins here feel like even another notch above. It feels more motorsporty, in my opinion. I don't know if that's because of the spring rate and the valving, but definitely this feels proper. Everything about this 911 feels proper. It's not just all show and no go. Yes, the interior and the exterior are an 11 out of 10, but what I love about the way it drives as well is the fact that it feels like a 50-year-old 911. It's not hiding any of that. It's not trying to be, say, a modern Porsche Cayman or 911 in its driving dynamics, and yet the overall performance envelope has been raised to a way higher level than what the original car in 1974 would have offered, I would imagine at least. Way more power, way more grip, way more sorted suspension. This thing just feels so good. One more straight line pull before we bring it in. You gotta be pretty quick with your shifts, again, because of that lightweight flywheel. Once you get the hang of it, this car's not that difficult to drive. It is high effort in terms of what you have to do with your hands and your feet, but everything works well together. You just have to kind of develop that muscle memory and get the timing of all your inputs down. Wow. 911 Cherry officially popped. And what a fantastic example to be my very first. I just can't imagine how the next 911s that I drive, air-cooled ones at least, will surpass this. This is so good in so many ways. It's visceral, it's raw, it's eccentric, and yet it performs like a modern car in many ways. Absolutely fantastic experience. A huge thank you and a shout out to YC for letting me experience his pride and joy. He mentioned it took him 9 years to build this 911. It was recently featured at Luft 9, which prior to a month ago, I had no idea what Luft 9 even was, but YC was actually kind enough to reach out before I even met him and hooked me up with a couple of tickets to that show in Vallejo. And when I showed up, I was completely flabbergasted. One of the best car shows I've ever been to, and yet it's only Porsche. Early 1950s era stuff all the way up to the brand new GT3, GT3 RS. This 1974 911 was featured, and I can't believe I'm actually getting to drive it today. Let me know what you think of the air-cooled 911, and let me know what you think of this, I guess you could call it resto-modded example. If you have a cool car you'd like me to feature and you're located in California, please give me a heads up. Shoot me an email or DM me on Instagram. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.